Hey guys, welcome back. Another video for to hopefully stimulate a discussion on woods and guitar necks, and if there's any preference that you personally have for the type of wood. Now, me being again, a novice, a home player, a play for fun type guitar player, does not play out, does not record, has limited guitar skills. This is my experience and my personal opinion here. So mileage may vary tremendously. But in any event, these three guitars have three different types of woods for the fretboard. This is the super budget Squire debut with an Indian Laurel fretboard. This is the not-so-super budget Sterling by Music Man Luke model with a proper rosewood, Indian rosewood fretboard. And this is the Fender made in Mexico Player Series Plus Top with a maple fretboard. So you've got Indian Laurel, Indian rosewood, and maple for the fretboards here. Now, what are the differences, roughly, in these types of woods? Well, first off, the maple, right, typically comes in two types. You've got silver maple, which is considered soft maple, and that's the most common amongst lower price point guitars. And then you have the hard maple fretboards, which bird's eye maple, quilted maple, spalted. You can go down the list, and these are more exotic type hard maple wood fretboards, and they typically on the higher end guitars. But in any event, occasionally you'll come across a maple fretboard. Now this has a slight gloss finish to it, but you'll come across some of the budget end guitars that don't have the gloss finish and just have an unfinished maple fretboard, which will give you a completely different feel from a playability standpoint. But in my opinion, to my novice ears, right, I can't notice any difference in the sound amongst all three of these fretboards, right? When plugged in, I mean, the amplifier, in my opinion, takes over, the pickups take over, and I don't even know how you would discern a different sound amongst this, for example, this Laurel fretboard and this rosewood fretboard. My ears just aren't that sensitive. Maybe they're old ears, maybe they're uninformed ears, whatever. But I don't know how you can really tell. Now, purists will say that rosewood has a warmer tone to it than the maple, for example, which is supposed to have a snappier, brighter tone. But again, this as opposed to this, which is Indian Laurel as opposed to Indian rosewood, is supposed to be slightly brighter in sound than the rosewood, but not as bright as the maple. Again, I'm not that sophisticated. My ears don't hear this. When I buy guitars with all these different wood types on the fretboard, I go for one thing, and that's feel. How does it feel in my hands? What do I prefer? And bottom line, in terms of my assessment at least, the rosewood fretboard is not quite, it has a gloss on it, first of all, has a more softer feel to it, I think, than the maple with the gloss fretboard. In other words, you can dig in more, maybe bend strings easier on the rosewood, in my opinion, than on the maple. However, on the maple fretboard, with this slight gloss finish to it that's on this MIM guitar, it's a faster fretboard. It feels slicker, it feels smoother, it feels faster. Bending is not as comfortable or easy, in my opinion, for someone that's not a professional guitar player as it is on a rosewood fretboard. I think you can dig in more, right? That's a way to describe it, on this fretboard than you can on the maple. However, I'm not a super lead guitar player or anything like that. I'm going purely by aesthetics and feel. Now, from an aesthetic standpoint, which is another important feature, what do you like better with various color combinations? I just simply like the way a maple fretboard looks on a guitar more so than a rosewood. Now, there are others that only play rosewood fretboards, right? Or dark ebony fretboards or, whatever type of wood, non-maple, for that appearance. If they have a light-colored guitar, they like the contrast with that dark-colored fretboard. I like maple fretboards. So my preference is not only from a feel standpoint and playability standpoint, but from an appearance standpoint, my preference is maple. Now, laurel fretboards typically are on the lower end guitars, the more budget end guitars, because they typically are cheaper than rosewood. They're more abundant woods than rosewood. For a while there, with the CITES laws, you couldn't even get your hands on rosewood. Manufacturers weren't shipping them. They now, with the ease on that regulation, have started shipping rosewood fretboards again. They're more common. But they have a similar look. I mean, let me show you. It's probably easier that way. The rosewood fretboard is more consistent in the wood grain and is darker, right? It's not ebony dark, but it's fairly dark, right? The Indian laurel has irregularities in the grain. You can see dark light patches on the wood. It is lighter certainly than the rosewood. And if you get into Pau Ferro, which I don't have here, which is another rosewood alternative, it's even lighter than the laurel. So you're going to have variances. But and the Pau Ferro now is a whole nother story. They claim that that's brighter than the Indian laurel, which is brighter than the rosewood. So again, my ears aren't that sophisticated. I really can't pick up on these things. What I can tell you, if you play these guitars, I'll put the stand out there, acoustically, not plugged in, which is the best way to determine, I guess, the natural sound of the guitar without any amplification. I'll play all three, just basic stuff, and you can hear how they sound. Come on back. This is the rosewood, obviously. And the one that's going to beat all three of these, believe it or not, is the cheapest guitar here, the debut, in terms of just, raw, without being plugged in, volume and resonance. Well, maybe not resonance, but volume. It's a little bit louder than the other two that I'm finding, at least here. I don't know how that'll come across on the video. But, again, there's going to be a debate amongst, the various fretboard woods, which are better sounding, which are better feeling, which are, last longer, whatever the case might be. Again, from a maintenance standpoint, which is probably the last piece of the equation, I think the easiest fretboards to maintain and take care of are certainly either the rosewoods, laurels. Maples are a little bit more tricky, especially if it's unfinished. You have to be real careful as to what you put on the fretboard in terms of oils. It's a little bit more tricky and intricate from a cleaning standpoint. But again, my personal preference is the maple fretboard from both an aesthetic standpoint as well as a feel standpoint. And again, I'm curious to get your thoughts on and opinions on where you sit with respect to one versus the other. If you can notice any difference in sound with any of these three woods. And I would love to hear them in the comments. So guys, Let me know your thoughts. Always appreciate it when you visit the channel. If you like these videos, please support me and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. And until the next time, be well and stay safe. Take care.